Hi, and welcome to Preview. My name is Guy Giampapa. Preview.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, cue Guy.
Now this is the part of the show that I enjoy. In fact, I've been looking forward to this particular show for quite a long time. It's no secret that I love Ragtime, which Company Theatre of Norwell is doing at the end of July. And I have with us today people from that show. First of all, Zoe Bradford, who runs the Company Theatre. Thank you for coming on.
Hi, Guy. We're always so happy to be on your show.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
Wonderful.
Well, you've brought along Melissa Canubia. I said it right. Carubia. Okay. Who is playing Emma Goldman.
Yes.
And who is that gentleman on the end? He looks familiar. His name is Mike Hammond, and he's playing Tata, right?
Yes.
That's the foreign film director, right?
Not foreign, but
Well, did he come
does end
from,
up, spoiler
Russia?
alert, becoming a movie director.
Okay.
He's a Jewish immigrant from Latvia.
That's it. Okay. This is a fantastic show, and I say that over and over and over again. Now, why did you pick that for this particular time?
Oh, for many reasons, Guy. But we purposely wanted, we're going into our 40th anniversary season.
By the way, congratulations
Thank
on
you.
that.
Isn't that exciting?
Yes.
Unbelievable, but exciting. And Jordy and I have directed countless shows, well over probably 200. But if I had to pick a favorite, this would be in like my top three. It's so rich and beautiful and interesting, great score, compelling characters, all of that.
Yeah.
But it also felt incredibly timely. This is even before there were issues of when the immigration issues were really becoming a super hotbed. But obviously, the Black Lives Matter is forefront in many people's minds, certainly ours, and immigration was right on the forefront too of being a potential problem. It just felt like the right thing to do at the right time. This show has a fantastic message of hope, and that's what we need right now.
It really does, and and you see it throughout the entire show.
You do.
It's there all the time. We're very aware of it.
Right.
Well, you have some historical characters in that show.
We do, and I love history and bringing those historical characters to life. It's challenging,
right?
Because a lot of people know what they looked like or what they acted like. Because this is 1902, you don't really know what they sounded like, but but there's so much literature and material out there that you can really research the character. That's exciting for people.
Yeah.
And those Michael Hammond's character of Tate, the Jewish immigrant, is loosely based on Hal Roach, who invented the many comedic films in the early.
In the early 1900s.
In the early 30s, late 20s.
Right. Yeah.
So there are people who have a nod to as well. So I love all that. It's exciting.
One of your historical characters is Emma Goldman.
Yes.
And Melissa, you're playing that.
I am.
Tell us about that.
I'm reading her autobiography right now.
Oh, are you?
And interesting thing about Emma Goldman, which I think is really important for why we're doing Ragtime, she did a lot of theater critiques. She wrote a lot about theater, was how she made her money to raise money for Anarchy and her other talks. And one of the things that she said was that the purpose of art and the purpose of theater is to put out a social message to the people who might not understand the struggle of the lower classes. And I think that's what Ragtime is doing now. What I love about the show is that it's taking real characters from history, along with people you connect to who are fictional, like Tata, and then the groups at the time that were undergoing social struggles. We have the immigrants, we have the Harlem Ensemble, we have all these different groups, and you get a personal connection to them because it's a musical, and you get the message out there in a way that reading a history book you can't.
You seem to know a lot about Emma Goldman.
I do.
I mean, did you, before you got the part?
So I had heard of Emma Goldman.
Yeah.
I knew she was a feminist icon. I knew that she had done a lot of work for workers' rights, but I hadn't done a deep dive into the character until now. And the more I read about her, the more I realized she was a real rock star.
Oh.
Yes.
A rock star. That's great. Well, Mike Hammond.
Yes.
You're playing Tata.
I am.
Tell me something about that.
It's incredible, and Zoe mentioned it being such a great show, and I had done the show before 15 years ago with Company Theatre, and it remains the best experience of my entire life. So to
Isn't
get
that wonderful?
to play that again is so unbelievably exciting. And things have changed so much in 15 years. And not necessarily for the better. I was having a conversation with Steve Dooner, who plays Henry Ford, last night. And he said that 15 years ago, when Company Theater did Ragtime, we kind of thought this was all in the past, and aren't we so glad that we've come so far? But now, doing the show, I feel like we're right back where we started, and there's so much progress that needs to be made in the world. So the timing, as Zoe said, is amazing. And the local references are fun too, because there are scenes that take place in Lawrence, Massachusetts. And my friend Victoria, who played Emma last time, she sent me a picture of, I sing about the corner of Orchard and Rivington, and she sent me the street sign.
Oh, that's great.
She called it she was on a factory tour of Lawrence, of the sweatshops.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she also said, when I was telling her about your approach to the role and the research and how passionate you are about it, she just said she was so pleased and so happy that it was in good hands. So she's really excited to see you in it.
Did any of you read the book?
I read it last time, and
You did, yeah.
I remember some of it. The book's a little more disjointed than the musical. I feel like the musical is put together in a more clear, concise way that's easier to follow and a little more interesting. And the movie is actually that way too. It's kind of a little bit all over the place, but this has a very clear story.
I think it's very clear too, Michael, because it's really about looking at people who feel like they're less than. There are groups, we've got a group from Harlem, and they're dealing with the feeling of less than.
Yes,
We've got a group of Irish who are, some of them have a role that's very unpleasant, but they have been downtrodden and feeling less than. Then there's the people of New Rochelle, and they're challenged with dealing with everybody, not feeling, on an equal part, and yet being American, which is, such a focus of the father is a fireworks manufacturer, and it's all about celebrating the 4th of July and all of that. So all of the way the stories interweave is brilliant. And I think the musical takes what's given in the novel and just weaves it so beautifully that you can really engage in each story equally. You're really rooting for everyone.
How many stories are there in
There's really
Ragtime?
3.
Is it 3?
Yes, because there's a New Rochelle family.
Yeah, with mother
who's
as
very
the
well
principal.
off, and then there's the Jewish immigrant Tate who comes over on a boat, and he's looking for a better life. And finds how incredibly difficult it is. And then you've got Coalhouse Walker, who's a jazz pianist, and he loves a woman named Sarah, who's a house servant. In New York, and everybody thinks about, it wasn't the same as down south, but you know what, there were still, Jim Crow had creeped, and there
were a lot of problems.
And African Americans were looking for a better life too in the North, but there was still a lot of issues. Oh, and another historical character that's so well represented, is so important, is Booker T. Washington.
That's right, too. I had forgotten that.
Yes, played by Todd McNeil Jr.
Okay.
And that's a great role to embrace because he's a great guidepost for the Black community.
This really, truly is a lesson in history.
It is.
With all these characters. I mean, because they're real people.
And it was so stimulating to get to watch a role like Booker T come to life. It's beautiful.
Another one was The Magician.
Houdini's in
and
this
Harry
as well.
Houdini's in it.
Harry Houdini, I
Right.
do remember that.
Yes, James Fernandez is doing a great job with that tricky role. Very challenging to do the physicality part of it. So we're working on that right now. The little surprises.
He's practicing getting out of his straitjacket.
Yeah, great. Great.
And Melissa, you saw Coalhouse and Sarah rehearse last night?
I did. So last night, Coalhouse and Sarah, Davron and Ariel, they had their first rehearsal together with Steve in the piano room, and another cast member and I were just done. We finished teaching our camp, and we went and we listened outside, and for someone having their first rehearsal together, there was already so much chemistry.
Wow.
They already had so much understanding of the lyrics. There's so much emotion coming out of everything they were doing together. We both just fell to our knees outside. We're like, okay, we're done. This show's going to be amazing. Everybody should come see it.
Isn't that wonderful when they hit it off right away?
And they
You
didn't.
know.
They had never been in the same room together before
Yeah,
that
it's like
moment.
they were together all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Amazing. For the first time rehearsing.
Unbelievable.
Wonderful. That's
So,
really
It's interesting.
that's really a sad part of the story.
It
the story
is.
of Cold House Walker.
It is. It's
Yeah.
tragic, and,
Right.
and yet it seems so incredibly timely for today.
it
I was
really is.
hoping, like Michael said, I was hoping that this would almost seem like a nostalgia piece. It doesn't at all.
No, oh no.
There's
no, far
nothing
from it.
nostalgic
Yeah.
about
We're
it.
still in a society that's always looking for the scapegoat,
Yes,
that's always looking
yeah.
for
Right.
someone to blame for problems and to put at the bottom instead of lifting each other up. And that's a lot of what the core of Ragtime is about.
Right.
is
What I
these
think is
groups.
interesting this time playing the role again is just focusing on Tata comes to America thinking that it's the answer to all of his problems, and as soon as you get off that boat, you're instantly a success.
Well, that was the thinking in
Right.
those days. That's why the immigrants came over.
Yeah,
because
I
of
bet
that.
many immigrants feel that same way now.
Oh, absolutely.
When they get here and realize it's a much bigger struggle than they imagined.
Right.
Wow, that's what makes this so timely.
And the
Yeah.
American
You know.
dream is such a thing that we as Americans have held dear to our hearts and with great pride. So to
Right.
think that people are being turned away from their opportunity at it is very heartbreaking,
Yeah.
I think. But not to be all negative, the score is uplifting
Oh, it's
and
beautiful.
brilliant.
It's beautiful.
Steve Bass is our musical director. He's a resident now, and he's really quite the, I call him the Wunderkind because he's just
He's a young man, isn't he?
He's a
Yeah.
very young
Yeah.
man who really gets it, and even though his PhD is in jazz studies, but he has a real passion for musical theater. He likes telling a story just as much as we do.
Yeah.
So
That's what you need.
and that's truly what you need. So he's found a second love, I think, in theater producing and musical direction. And he always plays in the pit as well because he's a great pianist. So he's really got this. As soon as I said Ragtime to me, he was like, whoa, like a magnet. Yes, let's do that one.
Magic name. Speaking of the music, Stephen Flaherty
Yes.
wrote the music, and I
Yes.
had the pleasure of meeting him way back when Ragtime first came to Boston.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That's maybe 12 years ago or longer.
Yeah, they were young.
Yeah, well, Lynn Ahrens, who wrote the lyrics,
Yeah.
teamed up with him. As
Right.
a matter of fact, I think their first show was Lucky Stiff,
Yes.
which was a mild
Yeah,
success.
right.
But they never really made it until Ragtime came along.
They did
Yeah.
Once on the Silent.
Once on the Silent was before or after that?
Before.
Before.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
Which I loved, yeah.
They're golden
That's having
now.
a
I
big
mean,
Yeah, oh yeah, should be good.
beautiful. Have you ever met either of them?
No, I have not, but boy, wouldn't I have loved to.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe
I-
it'll come.
I met them.
You did.
I did. I was
Yes,
in
you
the
did.
ensemble of Ragtime at New Rep.
Oh, nice,
And they
yeah.
came for a talk back. And it was so interesting because we kept asking, where did you get the idea to do Ragtime, Once on this Island, Lucky Stiff? And she had the same response every single time. It became comical.
Yeah.
She said she went into a Buck-a-Book and she went to the bin with the torn off covers for $1 and pulled out Ragtime, pulled out the
Isn't
book
that
that
funny?
Once on this
yeah, I
Island was
remember
based
that
on.
story.
That's
Yeah.
great.
So,
I love it.
and I don't know if you know this, but the first way we would have known about her was she's the female voice on Schoolhouse Rock.
Oh, I didn't know that.
She's Great American Melting Pot and
nice.
Elbow
Yes.
Room.
Really?
That's her.
Wow.
She sounds.
Wow.
She sings a little bit like Joni Mitchell.
Yeah, yeah.
Isn't that a great story? I love it.
They're two young people,
Yes.
both of them. You know, they're not old timers. They've been in the theater for years and years.
Right.
But they made it big.
And they still live in a tiny little apartment in New York City.
Do they really?
They do.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I love it.
Well, getting back to the show, tell me about Mother. She's the main character in this.
Well, she is one of the main characters,
Yeah.
yes. And Mother.
Who's playing Mother?
That's played by Paula Markowitz. She's the other person in our cast who's reprising her role.
Mm-hmm.
And Mother has one son, a little boy. Who's it seems like a little bit of like a late in life baby. They only have the one child, and she's married to Father, of course, who. Is being played by Peter Adams, who did the national tour of Ragtime as Father. So it's really fun to have him in our cast, and he's bringing some special things to it. At any rate, Mother is on a journey. She thinks she's comfortable in her New Rochelle life with her little boy and her lovely life, and they're fairly successful.
Right.
You know, living all pleasant in their Victorian house, but she knows something's missing, and when she finds a baby in the garden.
Right.
Been abandoned.
Yep. It takes
a little black baby, which is the shock of the neighborhood. Her life takes a great big turn, and Mother is compassionate. When the police arrive to arrest the woman who's abandoned the baby, which is Sarah, and put the baby up for in a house, some kind of orphanage. Mother's like, no way.
Right.
This
She's
gonna
very
be mine.
protective.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she's truly motherly, but she's also she sings in the beginning about I feel very fortunate.
Excuse me.
But by Act 2, she's like, Father is not being open-minded about her adoption of this baby. He's not being open-minded about a lot of things, and she's feeling frustrated. So she truly has a feminist core that she has to explore. So it's really great, rich role.
Wow, it
Great.
sure is. You bring back the memories of it.
Yeah.
A lot of it I had forgotten.
Right,
I remember
right.
that
It'll be
so
fun to
much.
see again.
Tell me, the opening scene. This is something not to be forgotten.
That's right.
And are you
Powerful.
doing it the way it was done on Broadway? Like a picture postcard?
Kind of,
There's
yes.
hints of that.
Yes, there's hints of that because there's little freezes.
Right,
Sally
it's the
Sally
freeze.
Ashton Forrest is doing our staging
Right.
for us because she can move the masses brilliantly.
Yeah.
We have 40 people in the thing. So, so moving the groups around and everything is very important. And they do create beautiful pictures because it's summertime. It's the awesome, post-Victorian because it's really Edwardian period with the parasols and the beautiful dresses, the high collars for the men, the wide ties, the derbies, and boaters. I love that whole image. You really go right back into time, and you see all of that. And the Harlem cast looks very kind of spiffy in a way. You know what I
Right,
mean?
yeah.
Really, really cool. Obviously not as well off, but they have great touches to their costumes and their mannerisms. They're definitely more free and easy. Where the New Rochelle people are more formal. They're more. Miss Manners.
Yes,
Miss Manners is out, and then you've got your immigrants who feel like fish out of water. They enter. They're definitely ragged. They're definitely, it just brings me to the Statue of Liberty. Bring me your poor, your hungry, tempest tossed to me.
Which is we always
that's where it
remember.
is visually,
Right, yeah.
beautifully. It's an outstanding moment when they enter. So you've got people who are reserved, you've got people who are in their own private time because they're kind of doing the ragtime thing very loose and fun, and then you've got these people who are desperate.
But it's
Put those three people,
you put them all there
together,
and
bam! It
it's
just
like a
gives you
picture
chills.
postcard, isn't it?
It is.
It's
it
like
is.
in 3D.
Yeah.
And I always remember that.
It's awesome.
What's
Yeah.
really exciting too is if anyone who has seen Ragtime before at Company Theater is in for a completely different experience
Yes.
because
I think so.
it's a completely new and fresh interpretation from last time.
I've never seen
Is it?
anything
Yeah,
like that.
It
I'm
is.
not even sure. I didn't even
It is,
watch
yeah.
my old video too much. I just looked at a couple of
Yeah.
things for set
I thought I would
things,
come in
but-
and just kind of do what I did last time, but that has not been the case.
No.
It's all new and fresh and a completely different set. And
Yeah, we're older and more experienced than we were then,
Right.
even though we were,
Yeah.
not kids when we did it, but it was just, I think I can bring my life experience into it more,
Did,
So, and Sally certainly is too, and Jordy, we're all bringing that to the table.
yeah.
Did I can't remember, but maybe one of you remember. Did Ragtime win a Tony?
Oh, yes, but I know.
It's amazing how Mother stands out.
Yes.
You know, I mean, it's just the way the role was written.
Right.
She had to be like that. You
She
know.
did.
Yeah.
She did. So that women could relate to her today. Because, I mean, I'm sure people like to be comfortable, and
Right.
that's all great.
Yes.
And
But-
she has to have such a character journey, a big one through song. I mean, when
Yes.
she sings Back to Before,
Yeah.
that moment where she basically separates, spoilers, she separates
Spoiler
herself
alert,
from
yeah.
her husband, and she becomes her own person, and she has to not only do that through her acting, but through the way she's singing. She goes from this legit soprano to this strong, almost slightly belted version of the melody. I mean, it does the job in terms of saying what happens to her on so many levels, and that moment in the
does.
show is so powerful.
I think a character that takes a full journey is the one that people will connect with the most. I mean, and
Yeah.
Tata does too. He goes from
Yes,
being,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
hopeful to extremely disappointed and downtrodden to working so hard that he achieves his
Well,
dream.
it's interesting how his character evolves as it goes along.
And
You know,
I
he
get to
said,
sort of-
well, what's going to happen next with him?
I get to kind of go along on the journey with Mother.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, she kind of takes me along with her.
Yeah.
And
in many
anyone who's
ways.
a parent in this thing, it just
yeah,
rips your heart out.
Oh, of
he
course.
has a child, and the mother
Because of
has
the
the little
baby and
boy,
all, yeah.
who is basically loosely based on Edgar Casey. We figured out because his name is Edgar, and he's psychic,
Mm-hmm.
which is just kind of a fun little extra thing. But it's just if you're a parent, or even if you're a person, everybody has a parent. You will just see the incredible sacrifice and decision making
Yeah.
that you have to make for your children, and that part of the story is really blow away.
There's so
Some-
much
the,
emotion in this.
Hannah
Yeah.
I
is
love
playing
her.
my daughter. Do you know Hannah's last name?
Hannah Dwyer.
Dwyer.
Yes,
Dwyer.
She's
yeah, I
one of our
wanted to
kids
ask you
from the
about that.
Academy of the Company
Yeah.
Theater.
Yes, she is.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
she's one of our students. Yes.
Well, you're involved in that.
Yeah, I'm the director
Yeah.
of education.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, you were telling me earlier before we went on the show.
Yeah.
It's exciting. Yeah.
That is exciting.
So
Well, this
Hannah
new role.
she came to us doing our production of Willy Wonka.
Oh, nice.
And then
Okay.
she auditioned for this.
Oh,
That's amazing.
And
that's
She's so
amazing.
sweet.
sweet.
I already feel so protective of her. We were rehearsing yesterday, and I had to look over at her during a dramatic scene, and I just started crying, looking at her sweet little face, and just thinking of her in any kind of peril. Went a little too far. I have to keep my emotions in check.
Until you're on stage.
Yes.
Especially yeah, with what's going on in the news, like seeing the scenes between Tata
Exactly.
and his
Yes.
daughter.
well, on that
and
note,
them together. Yeah.
happy
Yeah.
40th anniversary.
Well, thank
Oh,
you, guys. It's so
Thank
exciting
you.
to have this.
It's so wonderful to have you guys back here, especially you, Zoe. It's
Oh, thank
always
you.
good to talk to you. Melissa, thank you for
You're
being
very
on.
welcome.
And Mr. Hammond, thank you for being on our show
My
today.
pleasure, and thank
Loved
you to
it.
CJ Mullen for running the controls so that I could be on
Yes,
the show today.
that's wonderful. Thank you to him. Well, that's our show for this time. We hope you enjoyed listening to all the stuff about Ragtime, and I hope you'll go down and see it. My name is Guy Giampapa. See you next time on Preview. Bye-bye.